All right, good afternoon. I have a trip announcement. On Saturday, September 1st, the Secretary General will leave for a visit to China, where he will speak at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. That's a summit that is being held in Beijing. During his visit, the Secretary General will meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and other senior Chinese officials. He will also meet with the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, and other African leaders on the margins of the summit. The Secretary General will be back in New York on Tuesday evening, September 4th. And this afternoon at 3 p.m., the Secretary General will join members of the Security Council for a minute of silence in honor of former Secretary General KOFI ANNAN. The Council will then hold an open meeting and then consultations on threats to international peace and security caused by terrorist acts. Vladimir Voronkov, the head of the UN Office of Counter-Terrorism, and Michel Konix, the Executive Director of the Counter-Terrorism Committee Executive Directorate, will brief on the Secretary General's strategic level report on the threats posed by Daesh. Shortly before that, at approximately 2:45 p.m., Jeremy Hunt, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, will brief reporters at the Security Council stakeout. And today, the head of the UN Refugee Agency, Filippo Grandi, and the Director General of the UN Migration Agency, William Lacey Swing, appealed for greater support from the international community to the countries that are receiving Venezuelan refugees and migrants. More than 1.6 million Venezuelans have left the country over the past 3 years, with 90% of them having stayed in countries in South America. Mr. Grandi and Mr. Swing commended countries in the region for generously hosting Venezuelans arriving at their border. However, they also expressed concern over recent developments, including new passports and border entry requirements in Ecuador and Peru, as well as changes to temporary stay permits for Venezuelans in Peru. The current situation underlines the urgent needs to increase international engagement and solidarity in support of the government's response plans, Mr. Swing and Mr. Grandi said jointly. And just to let you know that the Secretary General last week sent a declaration of shared commitments on UN peacekeeping operations for endorsements to the member states and relevant international and regional organizations. The declaration is part of the Secretary General's Action for Peacekeeping initiative and aims to renew political support for UN peacekeeping operations. It spells out specific commitments that are vital in their successes, such as enhancing their political impact and strengthening the protection they provide. Pakistan was the first country to endorse the declaration on the day after its issuance. The UK endorsed it yesterday during the Secretary General's meeting with the UK Foreign Secretary, and Ukraine just confirmed their endorsement today. The Secretary General has requested that member states convey their endorsements by September 14th, ahead of the Heads of State and Governments event on action for peacekeeping scheduled for the 25th of September. On the on the DRC, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that as of August 21st, 103 cases of Ebola have been reported, 76 confirmed and 27 probable. This includes 61 deaths. Suspected new cases continue to emerge in Mabalako and Oicha areas of North Kivu. New alerts are under investigation in 3 more provinces, Mongala, Haut-Uele, and Haut-Katanga. A joint UN Ministry of Health team is implementing activities to combat Ebola outbreak, including investigations, vaccinations, water, sanitation, and hygiene education, as well as surveillance of the spread of the disease. And psychosocial assistance is being provided to affected families. Since August 8th, more than 2,000 people have been vaccinated. A joint response plan by the World Health Organization and the DRC authorities is finalized with funds secured from donors and humanitarian partners. The countrywide humanitarian response plan, which requires $1.67 billion to respond to the needs of 10 million people, is, however, only 24% funded. And today is the International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition. August 23rd marks the anniversary of the 1791 insurrection of enslaved men and women in the western part of the island of Santo Domingo, which, on proclaiming its independence, reverted to its original Amerindian name, Haiti. The uprising conveyed a universal demand for freedom. It speaks to humanity as a whole, without distinction of religion, and continues to resonate now with undiminished force. And just to flag that there will be a press conference today relating to the 67th DPI NGO Conference, and which concludes this evening. Following the end of the conference at 6:15 p.m., there'll be a press briefing here with Undersecretary General for Global Communications, Alison Smale, along with the conference chair, Winnie Bianayama, the head of Oxfam International, and they will be joined by other people. If you're looking for more information, contact Jeff Brez in DPI. And today we say thank you to our friends in Sierra Leone who have paid their dues in full, which brings us up to 123. Halas. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Stéphane. Do you have any update about the response to the invitation of Mr. Griffith for the Geneva talks on 6th of September?
No, we know the invitation went out. I don't have any updates on responses. Evelyn.
Oh, thank you, Steph. Is there any update on a memorial service for Secretary General Annan?
No,
either here or in Geneva?
Obviously, the family will announce the plans for the funeral and the memorial service wherever that is held. We're waiting for information on that, and then the General Assembly will obviously schedule a tribute to him at a time. Nizar.
Yeah, after the call of voce yesterday for the Yemeni situation, the cholera situation, and the aid, is there any response from the Saudi-led coalition to allay or to help in the population in Hodeidah particularly, and other areas in western coast of Yemen?
No, I'm not aware of any specific response we received from them. Yes, Ben.
Yeah, just the latest on the debt problems the UN is having. Has that gone down a bit? Are members paying up?
Well, we're getting regular payments. We're also getting payments to Peacekeeping. Those letters went out recently. But the situation continues to be not the best it should be. But there is money coming in. Yes, sir.
Hi. Wondering if you could, or hopefully you haven't already mentioned any update on the two high-level meetings that are coming up on NCDs, non-communicable diseases, and tuberculosis. There should still be preparations occurring, negotiations still occurring here. Do you have any knowledge
that's
of
a
that?
question best addressed to our colleagues in the General Assembly President's office. These are.
There are reports that 6 barrels of chlorine have been moved from Turkey into Khan al-Asal area in northern Syria. And the White Helmet organization have declared mobilization, total mobilization in Idlib area. Do you have any information about what's happening there, and whether there is a risk of using these barrels for any
we have no way of confirming the information that you mentioned about these barrels of chlorine. Obviously, we stand firmly against any use of chemical weapons by whichever party. Yes, SJ.
Good afternoon, Stéphane. Matthew Lee reports he's been banned for life. Is that the current state of affairs?
I think we've briefed already extensively on Mr. Lee. His accreditation was removed for issues of behavior issues in violation of clearly established guidelines. Thank you. And unless there is breaking news, we may give you a break tomorrow and not brief. By this announcement, I've probably invited breaking news, but there you go.